Today we're going to be making a hacky sack. So what I have for this is I have a pattern. When you're making multiples, it's a good idea to go ahead and make your pattern out of something stiffer so you can use it over and over again, like we will in class. I have a set of 12 of them. There's about 22, give or take, students in our classes. And so this way one person can trace, hand it to the next person, and everybody can get their patterns traced out of their materials. So I have my pattern, I have 2 scrap fabrics, I have some pins, I have my needle already threaded, as well as some chalk. So the first thing we are going to do is trace our pattern onto our various pieces of material. So let's see if that shows up. It does. Great. It's a good idea to use chalk. Students like to use pens or Sharpies, but that tends to ruin your cloth. So chalk is a much better option. So I've got this first one traced. I go ahead and trace the second one. Let's see how well this shows up on here. Also, it's a good idea to take a look. I think I want, some really dark pink areas. So this is where you can kind of play around a little bit with what parts are going to actually be on your pattern. So this feels kind of nice because I'm getting some of this as well as some of the pink. This fabric is a little stretchy. I'm having to kind of figure out different ways to go about it. There are also different colored chalks in the world, so maybe white wasn't my best decision, but I think it'll be fine. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these out. So I'm going to pause for a second, and then I'll come back when I have them cut out. So here I have my pattern. I have my 2 pieces of fabric that have been cut out in the same shape. And so something I want to talk about with this is making sure you have nice, sharp scissors. As an artist, or as someone who is going to be crafting a lot or creating things out of fabric, it's a really good idea to have 3 sets of scissors. I would have one for paper only, another for fabric only, and then another set for whatever else you need to cut in your life. The reason for this is because when you try to cut things that are really difficult with scissors, it will actually start to notch the edge of your scissors. You can kind of see a little bit of it here, which makes cutting fabric a lot harder. When you're cutting, you should hear sort of a snicking sound. If your scissors are too loose, it will actually just bend the fabric instead of cutting it. So it's a really good idea to have 3 sets of scissors and label them. And then, if someone asks to borrow your scissors, ask what they're going to be using them for first, because it's really terrible to have a pair of scissors ruined. So the next step is talking about how these 2 flat pieces of fabric become a hacky sack. This pattern is like a baseball. So if you've examined a baseball before, you can see how the two circles sort of come around to fill in this part of the circle. Then these go backwards to go to the other part of the circle. And so essentially they kind of lock in place like this. I also did a rough dot pattern on this. And so what this is kind of meaning is this is the seam allowance. You want to make sure you come in a little bit from your fabric. If trying to sew on the very edge of the fabric, what's going to happen is you're actually going to see the weave of the thread start to come through. It won't hold it because there's nothing sort of like holding that edge in place. And so eventually it's going to just tear out. Okay, so getting set up to sew, you want to think about what you want to have on the front, so or sort of on the outside, and that's going to determine what your hacky sack looks like. So this fabric has sort of two different ways to look at it. There's this side and there's this side, which is a little bit more shiny. It doesn't show up as well in camera, but I want this to be the front. So with chalk, I'm just going to put an F on it. And then this one's a lot easier to know, right? Because the back of it, the color has only been applied to the front of the fabric. It has not gone through and dyed both sides. So this is a little bit easier to see with how it's gonna, what side you're gonna choose. So I know I want this to be the front, and I want this to be also on the outside of our hacky sack. So I'm going to put them together like this, right? And we're thinking about that puzzle piecing, right? One fits into the other. And then I'm going to flip this. And then this is where we're going to start sewing. We'll let the camera adjust. Seems to be having kind of a hard time today. And so now I'm just going to take a little pin just to hold it in place. I'm going in through the back and through the front, just kind of have it sticking out there. And so, like I said, all around this edge is where we're going to start sewing. I have a contrasting thread. I picked a blue thread so that it would show up. I also think it's going to be kind of fun to see this gold, this pink, and sort of this like electric blue color. So I'm going to come in from the back. And so you can see I came in, let's see if it'll focus. There it goes. I came in from the back and I'm going to start sewing along this border. So we're going to go forward. We're just doing a classic back stitch. So I'm coming forward. And then I'm going to come back and loop through that first hole that I made. And now I'm going to start going this way. So as we sew, we're going to be turning the fabric. So I've got this first part started. I'm going through it one more time, just because I'm just trying to make sure it's really secure in here. And then we'll just start going into that classic back stitch. So I paused it just a second because I just wanted to get it going. And so I'll do some more stitches and I'll start demonstrating how I'm turning as I go. I've also moved this pin So again, I'm going forward with my stitch. And then I'm going right back through the previous stitch. And as I go, I'm pulling the underside around so that it helps it curve. I'm going forward a stitch. Oops. And so occasionally, because I'm dyslexic, I will do things like this where I went through the wrong way through. So I'm going to fix that. Sewing on camera is a little bit awkward for me, partially because I'm a little bit blind. And then also because I'm just not sitting in a very natural way. So again, we're coming forward, we're making sure that both our threads are on the same side, so I don't have that loop that I was having happen. And then we come back. Again, I'm turning the fabric. I'm coming in from the back. I'm trying to keep my stitches fairly about the same length. But honestly, what's great about this project is it doesn't matter that much for what we're looking at, because these stitches here aren't going to be visible. There's only going to be one area that will be visible. And it's not this area. So this is a great beginning stitching project because that's all kind of hidden. What you'll see is the seam. But I can't stress enough that having, you know, a nice sharp needle, nice sharp scissors, all will make this go a lot faster. And so again, we're going to turn the fabric. And that's really important. I'm getting a little close to that edge, which will happen, which means I need to sort of like bring it back. So I'm going to pause for a second and I'm going to take this out and I want to show you what the inside looks like. So this is what I was talking about, how this is the seam and you're not going to be seeing that. This is the front. So all of our stitches are on the back side, so you're not going to see it. There's only going to be one little area once we turn it inside out, once we've sewn all the way around and it's become sort of this baseball. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to continue sewing because I don't think you need to watch me sew this whole thing. And then when I come back, I'll show you what it looks like turned inside out. So I've sewn a little bit more. I just kind of wanted to show you what was happening here. You'll notice that I've moved the pen. I kind of just use the pen to help me hold it together as I'm sewing. So right now you can see how it's sort of turning into this bottom area, and then you can kind of see how this will come to help complete it. Again, we will be turning it inside out. So if we take a quick look, we can see that it's starting to really take shape. So I've gotten a little bit farther with this. Remember, I just started over here and just kept going and turning and sewing and following it around. I have this little gap right here. Just for aesthetics sake, I know that I want to seal it up here. It doesn't really matter where you seal it. But because I kind of want to be intentional with it, I'm gonna come back over here and sew all the way up to here. And then I'll come back on and show you the next step. Okay, so I have finished this up. You see that it's about, I would say 2 inches left. Notice that I've left the needle attached because we're going to use that to finish up. So now we're going to turn this inside out. So there's our Hacky Sac casing. And then I'm actually going to turn that a little bit. I'm going to take this needle and I'm going to put it back through just so it's on the other side. And the next thing is to stuff this. You can stuff it with really anything you want. You can stuff it with rice, lentils, beans. I have some rice, so that's what I'm gonna do. I have a little bit of paper here. I'm gonna make a funnel. So here's my funnel. You can use any sort of wrapped piece of paper. I rolled it up so that it can go inside. And now I'm just going to put rice into it. So as you fill it, I would kind of also tap it and shake it. And then I have a little bit more of this on this sort of butcher paper that I'm just going to go ahead and take and funnel into the funnel door. And then as I take it out, I'm going to give it a little shake. So you're going to want this a little bit more full, but this is all the rice I have on me at the moment. And then I'm going to go ahead and model how to sew this up. Again, you'd want to add more rice than that. So to finish this up, we're going to tuck the frayed ends inside on both sides like this. And then it's really helpful if you have a binder clip. So here's a little bitty one. And then I'm going to clamp it on the side that I'm sewing towards. So I'm going to put it here. And now the stitch we're going to do here, we're simply going to sew through both ends. So this is the only place where the thread should show. So I'm going to go through, right? It creates a little loop, and then I'm going to go through that loop. There's one. You'll want it fairly close together because you don't want the rice to come back out. Two. Again, you're sewing through, creating that little loop, then you're coming back and going through that loop. Then in the end, you're just gonna really want to make sure that you have your frayed edges tucked in. You may have to hold it with your finger just to make sure you keep all that turned inside. We have this last little bit. And there we go. And that is my hacky sack demo. Of course, you would then want to tie this off. And there we go.